Amazing act of kindness by a waitress to a homeless man revealed an incredible transformation in the diner bustled with life, the sound of laughter and clinking cutlery filling the air like an old familiar song. Sarah, a seasoned waitress in her late 30s, moved with an ease that came from 12 years of familiarity. She poured steaming coffee into thick, chipped mugs, her hands steady, but inside, a storm raged. The warmth of the diner stood in sharp contrast to her life outside. Bills piled on the counter at home, the weight of her responsibilities pressing down like a heavy fog that blurred her around the edges. A divorce had left her juggling 2 kids and barely their paycheck. Every slice of pie she dished out was a small act of defiance, a signal to the universe that she was still here, still fighting. Yet, as her life rolled forward, a nagging voice whispered unsettling doubts. Dreams long discarded loomed like specters, haunting the corridors of her mind. One evening, as snow fell like cotton fluff, blanketing the streets in silence, a shift occurred. Tom, a homeless man with sunken eyes and weary shoulders, slipped into the diner, eliciting a shudder from some regulars. Dismissive glances and hushed whispers echoed around him like a heavy weight. Alone, he settled in a corner booth while Sarah's heart tugged at her instinct. Ignoring the hesitation fluttering in her stomach, she approached him, unsure of how to offer kindness without feeling the sting of judgment from others. Dropping a steaming bowl of her homemade chili in front of him, it felt like a beacon in the stormy night. "It's my favorite," she smiled, forcing the casualness she didn't completely feel. Tom looked up, his gratitude shadowed by the sorrow in his eyes. What unfolded was a game of 2 hearts exchanging stories of struggle. Tom's vibrant past as a painter drifting in the winds of defeat, Sarah's constant fight against life as unyielding current. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As weeks turned into a blur, Sarah's small acts became a thread binding them, Tom's soul slowly awakening with her kindness. An extra piece of pie here, a shared laugh that each moment forged a connection, illustrated the striking contrast between their lives. But with each gesture, fear crept closer. What if kindness wasn't enough to change Tom's path? The diner became a stage, the patrons watching and waiting for something more. But as Tom's health waned, Sarah felt the pressure coil tighter. Would her children understand her commitment to a man judged by a community more focused on their biases than his potential? Would they see a lost artist trying to reclaim his world, or would they only recognize the risk she was taking by lifting someone from darkness, fueled by determination but shadowed by doubt? Sarah soared between fierce optimism and the paralyzing weight of expectation. The days grew darker, every moment threatened to eclipse the bonds forged through shared resilience. As Tom faced his own mortality, Sarah's armor of hope began to rust under the relentless burden of fear and conflicting loyalties. And just as she thought she found a way to manage it all, new challenges loomed, unrelenting and sharp. Would her unwavering belief in the goodness of people withstand the overwhelming tide of judgment from the small-town eyes that clung to Tom's fragile existence? In the chilling grip of uncertainty, the path ahead entwined their fates, leading to a looming crossroads, where faith, fear, and the search for redemption twisted into knots, waiting for release. As the winter months wore on, Sarah found herself wrestling with the emotions that bubbled beneath the surface of her daily routine. The laughter in the diner felt increasingly alien compared to the heaviness she carried inside. Tom's presence created a warmth in her heart, but accompanying that warmth was an unsettling strangeness, the glares of others beginning to stoke the embers of her own insecurities. How could she stand against the current of judgment when her own life felt so precarious? Every shift passed in a haze, punctuated by moments shared with Tom. His vibrant stories of past creativity and resilience breathed life into her stagnant existence, igniting memories of her own forgotten aspirations. She often caught herself planning fleeting fantasies of painting again, visions of color spilling over the canvas before her. Yet the mundanity of her reality would press down again, grounding her. During a particularly quiet rush hour, Sarah caught Tom gazing out the window, his eyes fixed on a world bustling with life. Was it longing she detected in his expression? It struck a chord within her, a reminder of her own childhood freedom, chasing fireflies in the fading light of summer evenings. Do you ever think about picking up the brush again? Sarah dared to ask, her voice a mixture of faint nonchalance and burning curiosity. Tom tilted his head, surprise flickering across his features. Every day, it feels like. Only there is a fear now, a block that weighs me down. His voice was hoarse yet rich with unfulfilled dreams. Maybe we can help each other, she suggested impulsively, not quite believing her own words. You know, I could find a way to get you some paints. Would you want to try? Tom blinked at her, the mask of sorrow he wore cracked slightly, revealing a spark of something beyond despair. Excitement. Hope. You really think I could? I believe you can do anything, she said, her voice firm, even if she didn't fully believe that for herself. Over the next few days, Sarah would sneak away during quieter moments to search for art supplies. A small corner store carried remnants of past artistry brushes, tubes of paint long neglected. Each visit carried an intoxicating thrill. It was as if she were peeling back layers of her own life, rediscovering forgotten pieces of herself. But her act of kindness began to carry weight she hadn't anticipated. The more Sarah invested in Tom's renaissance, the more her own fears clawed back into view. Could her children understand why she was pouring such time and energy into nurturing a man with such a tumultuous past? Would they see someone needing help or merely a distraction from their own mother's struggles? The question spiraled, tugging at her heart. As she prepped the supplies for Tom, excited knots twisted within her. You're giving him a lifeline, she chided herself, still wrestling with societal judgment circling like vultures. Yet, beneath the anxiety lay a tender seed of rebellion. Maybe this was just the rescue she needed too. Tom arrived at the diner one day, his hollow form gradually filling with a more resolute spirit. He was brimming with anticipation, an artist waiting for his canvas. In that moment, the power dynamic shifted. She was no longer just giving, she was growing alongside him. Let us start something tomorrow, Tom proposed, a tremble of excitement lacing his words. A small painting session out back. I need a push, and you seem like a good muse. Sarah's heart raced, exhilaration crashing into fear like waves pulling her into deep waters. Did she want to rediscover her lost self in front of Tom? Could she muster the courage to stand there again, a brush in hand, revealing not just his talents but her own buried aspirations? As she considered the implications of that promise, she sensed a turning tide. The stakes were higher now, personal desires woven tightly with the possibility of forging a brave new path, revealing the self she had neglected for too long. Tomorrow beckoned with the potential for transformation, not just for Tom but for herself. But could she step into the unknown and free both their spirits in one stroke? The moment of truth was fast approaching. They would face their darkest fears together. The chill of the early morning air sent a shiver down Sarah's spine as she prepared for the painting session with Tom. The amazing thrill of anticipation seemed to coil tightly within her. It was the first stirrings of passion she had felt in years. She hurriedly set the supplies in the back alley of the diner, each brush and tube of color laying down the foundation for something far more significant than just paint on canvas. As the sun peeked through the lingering clouds, casting a golden hue over the asphalt, Sarah's mind raced with doubt. What if Tom couldn't find his footing? What if she froze, unable to express the emotion swirling inside her? Would this venture turn into another layer of regret on the already heavy cloak of her past failures? The weight of these concerns gathered like storm clouds overhead. When Tom finally arrived, a light breeze danced around him, almost playfully lifting the grey of his mood. He looked different, more animated, with a conviction that radiated from him. For a moment, her apprehension wavered. Maybe this was it, maybe they would both break free of their shackles today. Are you ready? He asked, his eyes sparkling with a mix of excitement and trepidation. More than ever, she replied, her voice quaking as she tried to drown her own insecurities. She placed her hands on her hips, attempting to reflect confidence. If nothing else, she had to give this a real shot. Starting with sketching, they leaned into each other's energy, exchanging glances and tentative smiles as they brought the canvas to life with loose lines and shapes. Tom felt invigorated by the creative process, allowing his spirit to absorb the colors of his imagination. Sarah, on the other hand, struggled to find her rhythm. Each stroke became laden with memories of a past artistic self slowly suffocated beneath layers of doubt and domesticity. What if I fail? She muttered, her voice trailing off as her brush hesitated in midair. You can't fail if you're expressing yourself, Tom replied, a hint of passion in his tone that beckoned her to reconsider her apprehension. Art is about exploration, discovery, embracing the messiness. It's not about perfection. His words pierced her uncertainty, igniting a flicker of determination. She remembered hiding in her old studio, heart racing for a brush, desperately longing to escape the constraints of a life that felt increasingly mundane. They were revisiting not just canvases but lost parts of themselves. As she continued, the vivid yellow began to blend into rich azure, and she could hear fragments of her confidence resonating through her brushwork. Tom observed her transformation closely, noticing a glow that seemed to radiate from her the longer they painted. For the first time, he didn't see the waitress behind the counter, but an artist layered with stories, emotions, and dreams. He felt his own creativity surge alongside hers. The shadows of doubt began to lift, and for both, the air shifted. It was no longer just about the paint on the canvas, it was about reclaiming what had been lost. Moments turned into an hour, and with each passing second, Sarah felt a raw liberation overwhelm her heart. They had ventured into a space beyond their individual struggles. Together they were crafting a new narrative. But as she looked at their work, a fresh wave of anxiety washed over her. What awaited them beyond this moment? Would the brightness they created today continue to guide them in a world that often seemed so dark? Tom leaned back to examine their piece, the canvas now alive with energy and promise. Look at what we've done, he beamed. We've started something here. Sarah felt vulnerable, the fluttering silence between them filled with a potential that was both exhilarating and terrifying. She realized that the session had become more than painting, it was an invocation of latent dreams and a confrontation with their fears. Yet, a lingering concern knotted her stomach. This journey had unearthed so much, but she needed to confront the deeper truth of her own parenthood. The moment of revelation loomed as she resolved to share her experience, her journey in art, with her children. Would they understand her rekindled ambition? Could she guide them through their own fears while confronting the shadows looming over her heart? The decisions ahead weighed heavily upon her as Tom turned to her, a glimmer of understanding shared in their gazes. Want to do this again? Her answer lingered on the tip of her tongue, caught in the ambivalence of hope and apprehension. Drawing a breath, she pondered against the backdrop of not only her paint and dreams but the very essence of who she had become. Tomorrow, she finally said, determination solidifying within her, but tomorrow held more than just another painting session. It represented an urgent confrontation with herself, her family, and the uncertainties that threaded through her very being. As she embraced the uncertainty, a new fire ignited, a willingness to embrace whatever came next, together. But would the conversation she dreaded push her closer to the brink of self-discovery, or crack open the walls she'd so carefully built around her emotions? The answers loomed tantalizingly out of reach, poised to shape their destinies in ways they could never predict. As the first rays of dawn filtered through her window the next morning, Sarah awoke with a weighty sense of purpose. The vibrant colors they had splashed across the canvas the day before echoed in her mind, layering themselves with the apprehensions regarding her children. This was no longer merely about creating art, it meant reconnecting with the essence of who she was, who she wanted to be, and how she could pave the way for her children. She felt the warmth of that realization wash over her, igniting a budding determination to reclaim her identity. The thought of sharing her artistic revival with her kids pushed her from the comfort of the bed. Would they comprehend the significance of her journey? Fear mixed with excitement rolled through her as she prepared for her day. She visually scanned her surroundings, the mundane decor, the well-worn furniture, anything that represented the life they had built together. Each item began to ripple with new meaning, questioning if they truly reflected the family she aspired to cultivate. Arriving at the diner, the familiar clattering of dishes and the aroma of coffee grounded her momentarily. The regular customers greeted her, but their smiles felt different today. They were no longer just patrons, they mirrored the walls she had built around her spirit. She understood, painfully, how profound the gap had become between who she was and who her family knew her to be. Yet, something in her knotted stomach shifted as she accepted each smile as a symbol of her own possibility. As the day unfolded, she worked diligently, but her mind drifted to her children. The notion of holding an art session in the backyard danced in her thoughts, a space where they could explore creativity together. A personal project that broke the distance between her ambition and motherhood. But how could she open this door to their emotions? Would they laugh or reject the idea as foolish? A familiar hesitation crept in, but beneath it, the deep-seated desire to be more than just a mother and inspiration urged her forward. When the final customer's plates were cleared, she found herself approaching Tom in the back. He was lingering amid paint supplies, still buzzing from their transformative session. Hey, I've been thinking, she began, her voice steady. What if I set up an art session for my kids? Tom looked at her, his expression shifting from curiosity to intrigue. That sounds amazing. It's what got you started, isn't it? The ultimate realization crested in her mind. This venture was as much about her rediscovery as it was about guiding her children to find their own artistic voices. Yet, each step was still tethered to her fears. Would she be able to cultivate a space that fostered their creativity? Could she toggle between being vulnerable as an artist while also holding space for their emotional evolution? Why are you pausing? Tom's question broke the silence, pulling her back from her spiraling thoughts. I guess I fear I can't guide them in the uncertainty, she admitted, her heart racing. What if they struggle? What if I fail them? Yes, those are powerful thoughts, but look at what we achieved yesterday. You are already guiding them by leading through your actions, not just words. They need to see the imperfect journey you're on. His responses dripped with conviction, spurring something inside her. As they chatted, flashes of potential danced in her mind. She could fill the backyard with paint, laughter, and vulnerability. She could teach them that exploring creativity was about unraveling layers, not mastering techniques. This journey could bring them closer, create a shared narrative that echoed with authenticity rather than fear. Yet anxiety lingered, intertwining with excitement at the prospect of bridging her worlds. How could she balance vulnerability and authority? And what if they did laugh, the inevitable laughter that could stifle her spirit? The stakes felt immeasurable, and her resolve intensified. Tomorrow we'll do it, right? Tom's words hung in the air, charged with anticipation. Tomorrow, she echoed, her mind solidifying plans even as doubt loomed. That night at home, she sat amid her children, tentatively venturing into how art had become a guiding pillar of her life. With each word shared, Sarah caught glimpses of understanding from their eyes. The challenge ahead was now morphing into an act of belief for her entire family, albeit riding the waves of uncertainty. The moment as gravity shifted once more when she realized how much she wanted to prove to them that fear could coexist with strength, and vulnerability could redeem their familial connections. But would this new path strengthen the bridge to her children or fracture it further? As she tucked them into bed, their faces radiated warmth and contentment, but beneath her smile lay an escalating tension, probing and restless. Tomorrow would demand a leap into the unknown. Could her attempt to mold what felt impossible blossom into something greater? Tomorrow awaited with stark, thrilling possibilities, yet the shadows of her doubts loomed larger than ever. Would she have the courage to paint the contours of this shared dream? The weight of future conversations hung heavy, whispering truths she daren't yet confront. As she kissed them good night, a startling thought flickered through her mind. In a world so tightly wound with her insecurities, was it possible to strike a balance between nurturing her dreams and elevating her children? The answer lay in the canvas awaiting them, ready to absorb their shared struggles and victories, should she take that bold step toward the uncertain horizon. The morning sun streamed into Sarah's kitchen as if heralding the dawn of a new chapter. Today wasn't just another day, it was crucial. The tentative plan for the backyard art session loomed over her like an unpainted canvas demanding strokes of color. She moved about the kitchen, her actions guided by an electric energy that felt foreign yet inviting. The excited murmur of her children's voices mixed with the scent of freshly brewed coffee, sparking memories of their laughter that filled many rooms with warmth. However, beneath that excitement simmered an undercurrent of fear. What if the art session crumbled under the weight of her anxieties? Was she merely chasing a dream of connection that might dissolve like a watercolor in rain? Doubt clutched at her heart, yet determination rose up to snuff it out. This was a chance to unlock a part of her that had been tightly packed away amidst diapers, homework, and demands that felt never-ending. Mom, can we skip the lessons today? Billy's voice pulled her into the present moment as he and Mia burst into the kitchen, their faces gleaming with the bright possibility of a new day. We want to help you set up, right, Mia? Their eagerness was infectious, yet a familiar voice whispered cynicism. Did they even understand what art meant to her? Wasn't this endeavor merely a reflection of her desires projected onto them? Shaking herself free of her thoughts, she turned to them with a soft smile, ready to embrace their enthusiasm. As they worked side by side, her hands wielded brushes and paints with newfound purpose. She felt like a conductor harmonizing with a symphony composed of their innocent hopes and potential. For moments at a time, they shared laughter and playful banter, and Sarah surrendered herself to the peace that accompanied genuine connection. The worry of failure faded as she watched her children experiment with hues and shapes, their creativity unshackled from societal expectations, yet the shadow of her own vulnerability lurked, whispering uncertainties into her ear. If she faltered, would it shatter their fragile spirit? During a quiet moment, isolated by the sounds of splattering paint, she realized that this was not just about art anymore but about shared growth and discovery. She began to piece together her lessons, not just about color or form, but about resilience, failure, and, crucially, joy. Can we use this big brush? Mia inquired, her little hand clasping a paintbrush larger than her arm. Of course. Sarah replied enthusiastically. Art is about experimenting. There are no mistakes here. But inside, the echo of her earlier doubt returned. What if Mia painted over her own canvas too aggressively? Would the tears bring disappointment or confusion? The thought knotted her stomach, but this was precisely the moment to confront her fear. Feel free to explore, she encouraged, her voice steady despite her internal struggle. Let the paint be expressive. Mia shrugged her small shoulders in determination and plunged the brush into a rainbow of colors. Sarah's heart raced, watching as her daughter flourished with each wild stroke. It stood in stark contrast to her own hesitation, and for the first time, Sarah recognized that growth required a leap into the unexpected. The backyard began to transform. Canvas after canvas bloomed with bursts of laughter and ecstatic shouts syncopated with the splashes of paint. Time slipped by, forgotten in the vibrant chaos. Sarah realized that her nervousness did not have to dictate the experience, her raw enthusiasm was enough, but then an unsettling thought punctured the joyful ambience. Tucked carefully beneath the surface of the laughter and paint was the nagging possibility of outside judgments. No worst-case scenario could shatter her spirit more than the thought of failure in her children's eyes. What if they craved validation and succeeded in being perfect? Would they ever forgive her for showing them the fragility of creativity? With the session blossoming, she felt a pang in her heart as the certainty washed over her. This was a pivotal moment, not just for her but for them collectively. The real lesson here could be the beauty hidden in chaos, the willingness to create regardless of the outcome. But as she caught sight of her children's gleeful expressions, she couldn't shake the lurking dread that they might retreat into the shadows of societal expectations long after the paint dried. Would they embrace their imperfection and be unapologetic creators? Or would her well-meaning lessons collapse under the pressure of outside expectations? As a gust of wind fluttered through the backyard, she found herself teetering on the edge of discovery and vulnerability, pulsating with the urgency of this realization. Tonight, the weight of tomorrow's intentions loomed heavily. Could she truly guide them along a path that embraced the beautiful messiness of life? The answer felt tantalizingly close as they continued to paint their masterpieces, yet the flicker of uncertainty that ignited her resolve cast a long shadow, one she needed to confront in the creating and sharing of their art together. As they stepped back to admire their chaotic masterpiece, Sarah took a deep breath. Transforming dreams into reality had never felt so precarious, but one thing was clear: the moment when creation met vulnerability would be a canvas greater than any she had ever painted alone. Would she have the strength to confront those fears and truly embrace this new chapter? Tomorrow approached, thick with questions, ready to test her resolve. The sun dipped low as the backyard turned into a kaleidoscope of colors, the laughter of Billy and Mia still echoing in the air. Sarah stared at the paint-splattered canvases, realization dawning like the evening light pushing against the fading shadows. This was more than just an art session, it was a stepping stone to something she hadn't yet fully grasped. Each smeared brushstroke mirrored fragments of her own hesitations and jubilations as a mother, but as the children's giggles punctuated the fading light, doubt crept back into her mind. Could one afternoon of creative exploration truly shield them from the harshness of outside opinions? What if they encountered criticism for the art being childish or primitive? Her resolve began to fracture under the strain of these unwelcome thoughts. Images of perfection danced mockingly in her mind, the voices she had fought to ignore swirling around her like a tempest. Just as quickly, another realization emerged: the very imperfections inherent in this venture could shape them more profoundly than she'd ever anticipated. "Where did you learn to let go like that, Mom?" Billy suddenly asked, snapping her out of her mental spiral. His gaze was earnest, shining with the sparkle of curious admiration. The question caught her off guard. Did they sense her struggle? Did her children somehow see through her carefully constructed facade? The air thickened with the weight of her vulnerability, leaving Sarah exposed in a way she hadn't fathomed. Should she share the truth of her fears, the constant internal battle? The thought was terrifying, yet liberating. A decision crystallized in that moment. "You know," she started, her voice measured but soft, "I'm learning too. Just like you." The words stumbled out, amalgamating between fear and hope. "I worry about being good enough at this, just like everyone feels about other things. But today, I realized it doesn't have to be perfect. It can just be what it is." A silence filled the air, thick and palpable. Mia's eyes widened, radiating understanding beyond her years. Suddenly, she broke into a wide grin. "So we're not supposed to be perfect?" "Exactly." Sarah felt the unsettling weight of her own doubts lift slightly, replaced by an exhilarated rush of clarity. In that moment, she acknowledged her dual role as a teacher and learner, one that paralleled her children's journey. Mia turned back to the canvas, splashing color with renewed fervor. The kids latched onto the idea of imperfection, throwing themselves into their art with reckless abandon. As they painted, Sarah found herself captivated by their uninhibited creativity, shimmering with life and possibility, something she had almost suffocated under the weight of expectations. Yet, with each exaggerated brush stroke from Mia and each carefully considered line from Billy, a new fear emerged. The fear of failure wasn't just about her children, it wrapped itself around her aspirations too. Maybe this was a chance to nurture her artistic side as she had nurtured them. What if this venture, this vulnerability, could lead to a transformation that extended beyond just the backyard? Unbeknownst to her children, it was far more than a mere lesson in art, it was a hands-on workshop in navigating life as unpredictable canvas. Could she encapsulate the essence of today into something more enduring, something that could outlast their chaotic creations? That urge pressed heavily against her chest, impossibly enticing as she disentangled herself from the immediate moment. Determined, she took a deep breath, stepping closer to the canvas. Each streak of paint was more than color, it was an invitation to accept a messy reality, one overflowing with emotions, growth, and connection. She reached for a brush, the weight of it grounding her as she dipped it into the colors before her, yet a creeping uncertainty crawled through her veins again. If she started to create alongside them, would she fail to uphold the same encouraging spirit she wanted to instill in their artistic exploration? Would her self-doubt taint their experience? Just as she hesitated, the wind shifted, jostling a few brushes scattered by her feet. They tumbled, clattering to the ground, a startling reminder of life's unpredictability. She sensed an opportunity to step firmly into her duality, embracing both roles. Her hands hovered over the canvas, nudged by instincts filled with longing and considerable doubt. Tension coiled tightly in her stomach as she questioned, could she transform her fears into courage, turning this fleeting moment into a lifelong lesson for them all? The flicker of paint on that canvas loomed before her, offering a vast unknown where fear mingled with exhilaration. Eventually, the time would come to face the raw emotion swirling within both hers and her children's. In that moment, she steeled herself, ready to explore this newfound path and shatter the perfectionist mold she had felt shackled to for far too long. But the questions lingered, heavy with consequence. Would a foray into vulnerability bring them closer, or would it fracture their fragile understanding of art and self? The brush lay quivering in her hand, pressing her to take the next step, ready to leap into the unknown created by a shared commitment to authenticity and exploration. Moments stretched, thick with unspoken ambitions, as she pondered her next move. The unfolding canvas awaited her touch, yet looming over her head was the haunting question, was she truly ready to define what art meant both for herself and for her children? The brush felt foreign in her hand, yet simultaneously familiar as her fingers curled around the wooden shaft, trembling with the weight of unarticulated loss and longing. It seemed to thrum with potential, every bristle now a thread woven into the fabric of her existence. She steadied her breath, the gentle exhale anchoring her as she dipped the brush into the vibrant red paint. Each stroke would symbolize a confrontation not against her children, but against the meticulous structure she had built around her life, one brick layered atop another with the mortar of expectations. With the first swipe across the canvas, a surge of warmth enveloped her, draining away the chill of doubt. The red splattered violently, echoing the complexities of motherhood, raw, messy, and unapologetically vivid. Billy paused, eyes wide with delight, and asked, "Are you painting with us, Mom?" His question was a gentle prod, a reminder of the freedom she had just begun to embrace. Instead of retreating into her secure mental space, she chose to step out into the chaos, embodying the lesson of imperfection she imparted. "Absolutely," she exclaimed, the joy bursting forth, and she took a deep breath, welcoming the emotional reality of standing beside her children in this creative endeavor. Each child's enthusiasm poured into her, igniting a fire of inspiration and determination. She could not fail them, not today. As she lost herself in the rhythm of brush against canvas, she began to confront the ghosts of her fears. What if she painted something awful? What if her children laughed, not with delight but with criticism? A slight tightening in her chest suggested those fears lingered still. But with every subsequent stroke, deep blues followed by effervescent yellows, she realized that the judgment she most dreaded was a reflection of her own unresolved issues. Each layer of paint manifested as a step in her journey of self-discovery. The depth of the colors reflected her insecurities, the layers of urgency, disappointment, joy, all melding into an abstract narrative, profound yet simple. Billy happily mixed his color palette, while Mia created vibrant figures, carefree and joyous, embodying a spirit she yearned to recapture. "Mom, look!" Mia exclaimed, holding up her canvas, a rushing torrent of colors conjuring images of wild flowers and sunshine. "What do you think?" The little girl's hopeful expression sparked something deep in Sarah, pushing her to confront not just the child as art, but also the realities she harbored within herself, the limitations she imposed based on her perceived imperfections. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice steady, "just like you." Mia's radiant smile made the surrounding chaos dissolve, pulling Sarah further into the moment. The significance of that shared understanding became a conduit, one where vulnerability shifted toward courage and resilience, something they could all nurture together. As the afternoon wore on, colors began to swirl around the shared canvases, a celebration of life in its beautifully imperfect form, reflecting their mutual journey. She began to see solutions rather than obstacles, and the pain transformed her internal strife into a tangible exploration of possibility. The sunlight gradually dimmed, but within the portal of the backyard, connection flourished amidst fragments of color and laughter. A thrilling paradox unfolded, each child's creative expression intertwined with her own burgeoning sense of freedom, wrapping around her heart, finding a resonant echo of hope amid her fears. Finally, she took a step back to survey their work, theirs, a collaboration of unrefined beauty. This was merely art, it was metamorphosis. The unspoken message radiated amidst the colors. The greatest masterpieces existed not in their perceived perfection, but in their raw authenticity. Yet as Sarah turned to watch her children painting, a shiver of uncertainty flickered through her. Would this newfound path endure beyond the fleeting moments of joy? The question weighed heavily, for within every triumph loomed the possibility of relapse into those old shadows of doubt, a cycle she needed to break. Each passing second pulled her conscience tighter, and as her gaze fell upon the finished works, it crystallized the realization: the canvas was much more than paint. It held her longing for freedom from convention, the relief that maybe she could evolve in tandem with her children. What is next? She whispered to herself, but the answer felt tantalizingly out of reach. In this newfound world of artistic adventure, she sensed the hints of an impending battle, one that would require confronting the lingering fragments of her psyche. Would she have the strength to persist, to navigate through the mockery of perfectionism that had haunted her? And how far could art weave together their paths before unearthing unresolved tethered conflicts? With these questions echoing in the fading light, Sarah brushed her hair behind her ears, feeling the thrill of tomorrow as possibilities. She had awakened courage within herself, yet the journey was only beginning. What awaited her on this path could shape a future beyond her wildest imagination. She couldn't shake the sense that the real challenge would soon beckon her to confront the heart of her fears in an undeniable way. Would she rise to meet it? Morning light crept into the kitchen as Sarah sipped her coffee, the warmth weaving through her fingers like the paint she had laid on canvas. For a moment, the vibrancy of yesterday's creation lingered in her mind, a reminder of the surge of freedom she had tasted while painting with her children. But beneath that thrill was a gnawing thought, a promise of continuation, or perhaps, a perilous invitation to return to her old patterns. As the children busily prepared for school, Sarah felt the pressure of the day ahead constricting around her. The chaos of motherhood intertwined with her lingering fear of inadequacy, casting a shadow on the bright colors from the day before. Once the kids had left for school, she sat at the kitchen table, bare canvas awaiting her next move. Distilled in that silence was her realization: today was another chance to confront herself, to explore the tensions coiled tightly within. What if yesterday was merely a fleeting escape? She had held the brush, felt its power, but the prospect of facing her fears again, much less in front of others, clawed at her confidence. She pulled out her sketchbook, flipping through past entries filled with doodles and half-formed ideas. The images seemed to mock her for not yet translating that brief interlude of creative exuberance into something lasting. She needed to translate the fleeting into the tangible. The barn of her next adventure began to thud forward in her mind, a community art class. The very thought sent a shudder through her body. Navigating the realms of perfectionism meant pushing through crowds, engaging with strangers who might not share her lived experiences. What if she faltered? What if she revealed herself and crumbled? Yet countering that was a small flicker of recklessness, an undeniable urge to plunge into unfamiliar waters, to risk showing the imperfect brushstrokes of her journey. Taking a deep breath, Sarah reached for her phone and found the listings for local art schools. Her heart raced as she scrolled through the options, each offering distinct styles and levels of expertise. Somewhere deep down, hope battled with fear, an emotional tug-of-war igniting within her. Could this act of joining a class, of stepping outside her neatly constructed bubble, turn into a true act of rebellion against her controlled existence? Gripping her phone tighter, she finally tapped on a class that felt both inviting and sheerly intimidating. A beginner's mixed media workshop, an open canvas with no promise of right or wrong. The next session was only a few days away, a blink in time yet a looming deadline. When the confirmation pinged back, it felt not like a weight lifted but rather an anchor dropped into deep waters. Waves of exhilaration and panic churned within as she pictured the classroom filled with vibrant energy, unlike her stoic isolation. Accountability would replace her penchant for self-doubt. How could she emerge as a storyteller of her own narrative in this vibrant setting? After her children returned from school, Sarah expressed her desire to explore art classes. Incredulous laughter erupted. "Mom, you are so not a beginner," Billy teased with playful abandon. "But maybe that's the point," she replied, her voice steady. "Art isn't about being perfect. It's about exploration." The animated dismissals and encouragement swirled in her mind, a source of strength and challenge. Yet a nagging doubt simmered beneath the affection. As night crept in, shadows enveloped the familiar spaces, twisting old fears anew. Would she approach the class not only as a mother but as herself? Her heart beat against her ribcage, and as she reconsidered her intentions, a question loomed larger: could this experience break the shackles of her self-imposed limitations, or would it throw her into an abyss of vulnerability where judgment loomed large? Standing before a mirror, she caught a glimpse of the woman she was becoming, a fractured reflection of courage, layered with uncertainty. The light seemed to flicker and shout, urging her toward the unknown. Sarah felt a pulse of compulsion race through her. It was time to act, to embody the potential she had felt with the kids. Decisions lay ahead, but would she find strength in the light of possibility, or succumb to the shadows of doubt that had haunted her for so long? In that reflective moment, she held onto her brush and a commitment to grow as an artist and a mother. A new chapter beckoned. But deep down, she knew this journey would test not only her artistic boundaries, but also the resilience of every choice she had made to reclaim the very essence she nearly lost. And outside, the night whispered almost conspiratorially, was this newfound resolve enough to carry her through the tumult that awaited? Sarah woke the next morning with a sense of purpose threading through her veins. The echo of yesterday's questions hung in the air, but today felt different, like the anticipation before the first stroke on a fresh canvas. Although her mental clock ticked loudly with reminders of fear, she couldn't shake the electric thrill of her upcoming art class. Sitting at the table with a steaming cup of coffee, her mind wandered over the possibilities. There would be other students, each with their vulnerabilities, triumphs, and creative dreams. The thought filled her with both excitement and trepidation. Could she really show them her unpolished self? She pushed down her self-doubt, reminding herself that exploration trumped perfection, yet it pressed back with a vengeance. The day passed in a blur of routine school drop-offs and mundane errands, each task a momentary distraction from the weighted anticipation of the class. Even the mundane tasks held an unexpected weight of significance. Washing dishes, folding laundry, each movement felt like a brushstroke, a reminder of the art she yearned to embrace, yet hesitated to delve into. When evening crept in, she stood before her easel, and it beckoned to her as if it was alive with the potential that she could wield. Flickers of ideas tiptoed through her mind, pushing her to commit them to the canvas. She picked up her brush, but a rush of familiar insecurity crashed over her. The unfinished canvases lurking in the corner felt like glaring judgments. Staring at the blank surface, her heart raced with the weight of expectation, the expectation she placed firmly on her own shoulders. Each brushstroke was not just a color but a manifestation of her doubts, hopes, and aspirations, all converging at this critical juncture of her life. Was this journey into art going to be a panacea, or merely a facade to distract from deeper issues? Could she embrace her imperfections and let them breathe life into her work? Her head spun with questions that echoed louder than the rhythmic strokes she longed to make. With each passing moment, the urgency of the class drew near, sharpening her focus. The vulnerability of sharing her art began to crystallize into resolve. She typed a few words into her phone, her fingers trembling slightly. "Art isn't about being perfect." That line now served both as a mantra and a lifeline, tethering her to the belief that it was okay to simply be. The day arrived, and as she dressed, a kaleidoscope of emotion flared, anticipation brushed with dread. Looking in the mirror, she asked herself if this was courageous or reckless. She was stepping beyond the protective bubble of her home, peeling away layers of her identity shaped by others' perceptions. Arriving at the studio, Sarah was enveloped by a spectrum of colors and textures. The smell of paint and fresh canvas ignited her senses. This was the crucible of her transformation. She was met with a blur of faces, some eager, others apprehensive, but shared nervous energy rippled through the atmosphere. As she settled in with a blank canvas before her, the classroom felt inviting yet daunting. Everyone was here to explore, to stumble, and perhaps even to fall short. Each participant's struggles mirrored her own. A glance around the room revealed similar apprehensions clustered behind enthusiasm. The instructor's voice cut through the noise, stating, "Art is the celebration of imperfection, the freedom to express what you feel." In that instant, something clicked within her. The realization washed over her. A shared vulnerability hung in the air, binding them in this creative experience. Could this external environment be the catalyst to dismantle the walls she had built around herself? As colors began to swim on her palette, she felt the weight of comparison begin to loosen its grip. Forgetting the past fears, she focused on the stroke of a brush, pouring herself into each line, each color a dance of freedom. Yet, as her courage blossomed, a new doubt crept in. Would her newfound openness be accepted by others? What would they think of her expressions? Would she emerge as a flawed artist, or would she be branded just another wannabe, forever caught in an endless loop of inadequacy? Determined, Sarah took a deep breath and composed herself again, knowing this journey could unlock new dimensions of her identity. She steeled herself for the waves of uncertainty and vulnerability that awaited both within her art and in response to the connections she might form. With each stroke, she embraced the messy beauty of creation, a tangible narrative unfolding on the canvas. But as paint mingled with her fears, she stood at the precipice of a deeper confrontation. Could the act of sharing within this class unveil not just her artistic skill, but more profound truths about who she was and who she wanted to become? The canvas waited, a blank slate drawing her into the heart of a greater exploration, and Sarah knew this was only the beginning of a larger journey that would test her resolve in ways she had yet to fully comprehend. The unknown loomed just as vibrantly as the colors on her palette, and with a pulse of hope rippling inside, she prepared herself for what lay ahead. In the days that followed, Sarah approached her art class with a renewed sense of purpose. Each session became a revelation, a step closer to reclaiming the vibrant, artistic spirit she had nearly forgotten. The initial nervousness transformed into a thrilling dance with creativity. She reveled in the messiness, embracing her lack of control as a powerful catalyst for growth. The instructor, recognizing Sarah's potential, encouraged her to explore beyond the confines of her comfort zone. Art has no boundaries, Sarah. Don't be afraid to let your layers unfold. Your journey matters, he said, his words resonating deeply within her. His acknowledgement was a validation she hadn't expected but desperately craved. As she created, Sarah felt the weight of her self-doubt begin to lift. Each brushstroke rid her of the lingering echoes of inadequacy. She poured her fears, hopes, and joys onto the canvas, capturing fragments of her transformation. The bright colors reflected not just her aspiration but a vibrant energy bubbling beneath the surface, waiting to be released. She found herself inspiring others in the class, sharing techniques and encouraging them to flow freely in affirmation of her development and newfound confidence. One weekend, she decided to bring her children along to her art class. The thought filled her with apprehension. Would this reveal her imperfections? Would she provide an example of vulnerability while simultaneously being a role model? But an unwavering determination pushed her forward. This was the essence of the journey they were all embarking on together. Arriving at the studio, Sarah's heart raced as she introduced Tom, who had been welcomed into their lives after being assisted by Sarah's kindness. He had reclaimed his passion for painting, so much so that he became a source of artistic inspiration for her children, much like she had found solace in him. He was not just a figure of support, he had become a testament to the transformative power of art. Kids, this is where creativity sparks into reality. Sarah enthused, a smile breaking across her face. The energy was infectious. Mia and Billy were eager to dive into the colors. While they explored paint and laughter in one corner, Sarah stood alongside Tom, who was meticulously working on a canvas of swirling colors. His journey had revitalized him and sparked a new connection between them. Suddenly, Sarah felt both motherly pride and artistic validation intertwine as she watched her children grapple with brushes and canvases, just as she had done. They weren't seeking perfection, they were discovering their own splashes of creativity. Mom, look. I'm painting a universe. Billy shouted, beaming with joy as he splattered colors with abandon. At that moment, an epiphany struck Sarah. The act of expressing oneself through art was an exploration not only of talent but of identity. She brushed away the internal comparison that once clung to her, realizing all artists from the revered to the novice shared the commonality of uncertainty. The shared act of creation now provided a beautiful backdrop for their family that wrapped them in laughter and understanding. With a gentle nod from Tom, she took her brush again, a powerful invitation to merge her personal journey with her children as burgeoning spirits. Together, they created a breathtaking mural that represented the collaboration of their different journeys. Each stroke revealed not only colors but vulnerabilities, becoming a symbolic fortress against the doubts that once haunted her. As they painted side by side, laughter filled the air and Tom stepped back to admire their collective work. Look at what we accomplished together, he beamed. This isn't just art, it's a tapestry of resilience. Each stroke held stories about growth, courage, and love, layers woven delicately together. The sense of achievement blossomed within Sarah as she gazed at their mural. Her heart brimmed with full-fledged confidence. She was not merely a waitress anymore. She was an artist, a mother, a reflection of wearable dreams, embodying all the beauty of life as complexities. The applause erupted around her, her instructor honoring the work they created together. Validation surged through her. She had conquered her demons, turned judgment into acceptance, and self-doubt into creativity. The journey was DNN but rather a pristine unveiling. As the sun dipped below the horizon, each brushstroke felt like a celebration of their stories, a profound leap toward authenticity in art and life. Sarah knew this experience had forged lasting connections. Her children witnessed vulnerability, courage, and artistry. Their mother as a multifaceted individual, not defined solely by her struggles. They had painted a story of transformation, reclaiming dreams once buried, ultimately unveiling a clearer version of herself. She had engaged in a practice far beyond mere art. She encouraged her children to embrace life as unpredictability with open hearts. Tomorrow awaited, painted with promise. As she embraced this vibrant new chapter, she felt a surge of excitement. What other stories would unfold? What depths of exploration could they dive into next? Sarah knew now the path of creation never truly ends. It only beckons us to journey deeper, weaving through the layers of both joy and challenge, and she was ready to embrace every brushstroke of it. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm because it makes a huge difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your feedback means everything. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.